How are you? Yep, I'm a whole hour late. I said I'd be here midnight. But hey, better late than never, right? Okay, I'm looking for something that just ain't here. How come I can't get my things going on? This is strange. They took it away? Huh. Why'd they take the thing away? Alright. Okay, so welcome to chapter 2 reading of the Kept Ones. Debarge, the Fame Years by Bunny Debarge. I'm still dealing with this issue. It has now moved out of my chest into my head. Excuse me. But I'm a little bit better than I was the past few days. Okay. This just does not have any filters. You have to look at a completely black screen. Alright. We're moving on to chapter 2. It's been a long time, huh? Alright, so chapter 2 is titled Source Records. Bobby picked us up early for a day at Motown. He was excited to be with his family, and it showed in the way he walked and talked. Bobby behaved like a proud father, while I, always the mother figure, sat back and quietly cheered him on. The day had finally arrived. Our hearts were united as we walked in total rhythm with each other. We were very close-knit as siblings. Putting on a united front, we prepared to enter our destiny. If joy were a tangible entity, our faces is where it could be seen and measured. The only other time I remember any semblance of joy being manifested in our lives was when we finally relocated to Grand Rapids from Detroit. What a sense of freedom to be living out everything we believed we were meant to be in life. Stars. Today, we were all headed to the Artist Relations Department, A&R, at Motown Records. As we entered the lobby, the energy flowing between us was electric. We were eager to reach our destination, but the building was crowded and the elevator quickly filled with people. Bobby had us wait for the next elevator so we would have it all to ourselves. Once we were on the elevator, Bobby announced we would be going to the 14th floor. We could have never imagined everything our eyes would visualize once we stepped off the elevator. When the elevator doors swung open, there we were in the lobby that housed Motown's A&R department. In the middle of the lobby sat a receptionist's desk. We slowly inched off the elevator into the lobby in complete awe. Images of great Motown artists from past and present covered the walls of the lobby. There were various styles of photography, some in glossy black and white and others in color. Bobby and Tommy had become accustomed to seeing this unique setup. They remained cool, calm, and collected. For the rest of us, Randy, Mark, Elle, and myself, we were stopped dead in our tracks trying to take in all the images. Even though we were only looking at pictures, we were completely starstruck. There were beautiful images of the diva herself, Diana Ross. Then there were, to me, the king, Smokey Robinson. The Temptations had images represented that included David Ruffin and the other images of Dennis Edwards. Other Motown artists featured about the walls were Rick James, Tina Marie, Ozone, Daz Band, Switch, the Jackson 5, and Jermaine Jackson. I stared at the image of Switch. It melted my heart to see images of my brothers beautifully framed and displayed among other Motown greats. Bobby and Tommy checked in at the receptionist desk. All we had to do now was wait for someone to come back from the offices and meet us. Looking around, I noticed we were not the only ones in awe. The receptionist sat there and stared at us, unable to utter a single word. Perhaps she was trying to figure out who we were, six people who all favored one another in one way or another. Bobby, always sensing when someone had a question, was about to explain everything to the receptionist. Before he could do so, the double door swung open and we were off to the A&R department. Bobby and Tommy appeared to have a great relationship with everyone. Each person we passed made small talk with them. There were conversations about promotional strategies and marketing ideas for Switch's next album. Some people even joked about their upcoming photo shoot. It felt like the rest of us were walking through a foreign country because we did not understand the terminology being used. They might as well have been speaking French. I did not allow this to discourage me, though. I figured soon enough the rest of us talented Debarges would fill Bobby and Tommy's shoes and be able to understand the lingo. Bobby and Tommy stopped at just about everyone's office to introduce us while giving them a complete rundown of each sibling. Some people knew of our impending arrival while others were surprised. My brothers were indeed happy to show us off, and even happier we would become members of the Motown family. Bobby bragged on us incessantly throughout the day. He made sure the powers that be knew each person's musical strengths, as well as the part each would play in the group. By the time Bobby and Tommy were done showing us off and bragging about our musical gifts, it dawned on me we would have a lot to live up to at Motown. Bobby and Tommy did not make it easy by the way they carried on. Of course they were being your typical proud brothers. Still, it was too much. We left Motown with a renewed sense of purpose and with Bobby promising everyone they would be hearing from us real soon. Hold on. Let me do that so that stops. Doesn't make no sense. The boys were already signed to Source Records, and I was getting ready to sign. We had no idea what the contract entailed, and part of us did not care. Our goal was to sign with Motown. The Source Records deal was temporary. We surmised that once Bobby was ready to showcase us at Motown, we would simply switch companies. Boy, were we in for a rude awakening. Wow, I'm sure you were. When Bobby learned the boys had already signed to Source Records, he was furious. They had somehow managed to keep this information away from him. It was easy to do since Bobby was consumed with Switch and barely found time for anything else. He rarely inquired about what was happening in our day-to-day lives. However, news of the boys signing with Source Records broke his heart. Bobby voiced his concern we may have jumped the gun. When Bobby initially discussed this with me, I was in complete shock because I was sure the boys ran this by him before they made any moves. Bobby was furious, mainly because he had lost control. "How could you let them do this, Bunny?" he asked. "You guys knew I wanted all of us to be together at Motown." "How could I let them do it?" I asked, not understanding why he was blaming me. "It was not my idea. I thought you knew." Bobby stated he knew nothing about the Source Records deal. He did backtrack for a minute and stated he may have heard through the grapevine the boys were already signed to a record label. However, because he did not hear anything directly from me, he simply let it slide. I confirmed with Bobby the boys had indeed signed with Source Records, but I was only privy to this information after the fact. I let Bobby know I was not signed yet. Seeing Bobby upset, I felt depressed and defeated. I knew how important it was to him for us to stick together and be on the same record label. He wanted to know what burned liches had gotten us into with Source Records. Bobby was right about us jumping the gun. From the moment L threw the shovel in the snow and walked away from his job to the day the boys moved to California, and finally when my girls and I joined them, everything was moving under a fog. We had more questions than answers. However, we believed in Burned, and I don't know if it's supposed to be Bernard, but it's spelled Bernd. Burned. I don't like. I'm gonna say Bernard if y'all don't mind. However, we believed in Bernard and believed his benevolence was a show of support for our burgeoning careers. Bernard had provided us with airline tickets, a place to stay, and instruments for the boys. We were on our way to becoming entertainers. We did not give a second thought to the business side of the deal. Why should musicians concern themselves with business dealings? We were artists, and the business side was not as appealing and ended up a very confusing process. All we wanted to do was make our way into the recording studio and work our magic. We quickly discovered the importance of also understanding the business side. Frustrated, Bobby gave me a hard-hitting lesson regarding the music business. It was a business first, and somewhere down the line, the music mattered. Placing the music above everything else is a recipe for disaster. There were vultures swarming the industry, preying on those who did not handle their business. I learned what a contract meant, but mostly all it concealed. The contract the boys signed would bind us to Source Records for 7 years. Bobby stated we should have known better and used the assistance of a good lawyer to negotiate the terms of the contract. However, since the boys had already signed, it was too late, and they would not be able to get out of the contract. Listening to Bobby, I realized he could have helped us with so much if only we had run everything by him first. Hey, James, I see you. He mentioned we should have been provided a salary by the record company. In doing so, we would be able to focus on being creative without having to work a regular 9-to-5 job. Bobby then went on to inform me Motown was the only company he knew who placed their artists on salaries. He opened my eyes and helped me understand a lot of the business side. I realized we truly had no clue. Signing the contract was more serious than we could ever imagine. At this point, I believed there was not much anyone could do to help. The boys were under contract and had done so without any legal advice. Bobby believed that the boys stayed under the contract with Source Records, it would only spell doom. I figured maybe he could talk to Bernard and fix the situation. Burn. Maybe the D is silent. I'll say Burn because this is a weird name. Bobby became even more frustrated because he was busy in the studio trying to complete his album. He did not want to become entangled in the business affairs of another record company. Bobby stated he hoped the deal with the company worked in our favor, but it was on us to figure it out. I told Bobby I would find out more and inquire about the record company's next move concerning the group. One thing for sure, Bobby had lit a fire under me. After talking with my brother, I had an idea of what I needed to say to the president of the record company. Bobby and Tommy's record deal with Motown appeared to be going smooth. I wanted the same deal with Source Records that they had with Motown. I hoped after stating my concerns to the powers that be at Source Records, it would happen. There was no time for me to tarry. I needed to figure out how to clean up this mess. I had yet to meet the president of Source Records. My only means of communicating with him was through Byrne. Later in the evening, I put in a call to Byrne and let him know I needed to meet with the president of Source Records, Mr. Logan H. Westbrooks. Understanding my concerns, Byrne promised to reach out to Mr. Westbrooks and get back to me the following day. With this situation squared away, for now, it was time for me to focus on my personal life. I was still dodging Tony's calls. I felt torn between working on a marriage no longer fulfilling to me versus focusing on my career and trying to clean up the mess the boys had made by signing the contract with Source Records. I was sure Tony must have been unhappy since he had no idea where my head was concerning our marriage. I needed to talk with my husband soon. Before I took the next step, I wanted to be sure about a few things. Did I want to continue with my marriage or let it go? Even though I was one step closer to my destiny, I had not yet signed to Source Records. I did give Source Records my word I would sign once I arrived in California. With everything Bobby had schooled me on regarding the music business, I weighed my options. Do I focus on my marriage and try to make it work? Or do I commit myself to my dream and try to work everything out once I met with Mr. Westbrooks? I began to question who had my best interests at heart, my husband or the record company. Well, that's a damn shame if you have to ask yourself that kind of question. That's a question you should never have to ask yourself, who has your best interests at heart if you're married, don't you think? Since the move to California, I busied myself with looking after my brothers and taking care of my girls. I enjoyed caring for everyone. It felt comfortable and familiar. Even though I did not give birth to them, I was their older sister and still felt responsibility to them. I loved my brothers with my entire heart. From a very early age, I felt as if they were mine to protect. It took many, many years for me to recognize and accept my brothers were just that, my brothers, and not my responsibility. Anyone could see they were big in my world, and I could not help but feel the need to protect them, especially when they make decisions such as signing a record deal that may not work out in their best interest. Byrne stopped by our home later to tell us Mr. Westbrooks had set up a meet and greet. The boys and I were to meet the president of Source Records for lunch at a Los Angeles area restaurant. He stated he would pick us up the following day and drive us to the location. The very next day, Byrne picked us up, Elle, Randy, Mark, and me, and drove us to the restaurant. We were finally going to meet the president of the company. We had planned to share with him the songs we had written and how we were eager to lay tracks in the studio. It was our hope Mr. Westbrooks would make this happen soon. Spending time with Bobby and Tommy gave us an inside view of how the studio process worked. We were excited about the meeting and eager to take the next step. The restaurant was warm and inviting. After we were seated, Mr. Westbrooks walked into the restaurant with the confident swagger of a successful businessman. The boys rose quickly to shake his hand and give him a hug. He made us feel at ease and gathered our attention by speaking on our favorite subjects, music and its pioneers. I found Mr. Westbrook's warm and approachable. He had a gentle spirit and was very much a teacher. He was well versed on many topics. He was also a great listener and allowed us to express our expectations of the company concerning our careers. Our lunch meeting with Mr. Westbrooks was sobering. We had to face the cold, hard facts about the 7-year record contract and what it entailed. Mr. Westbrooks explained that Source Records was a small record company and had invested money in a master tape. They needed a group to promote it. For the first year of the contract, the group's obligation would be to promote an album resulting from the master tape recordings. Apparently, Source Records had purchased a master tape of White Heat's recordings from Burn. Bobby Gregory Williams' White Heat Switch and Jody Sims' White Heat slash Switch, as well as my husband Tony Jordan, White Heat, were former band members. Barry White had produced the album. The tracks had never been released. The one track written and sung by Bobby entitled Please Don't Let Me Go would now be our single. Source Records planned to release it under the group named Smash. Unbeknownst to us, the group Smash would consist of L, Randy, Mark, and myself. Byrne had told Mr. Westbrooks that L's voice sounded almost like Bobby's voice, which then piqued his interest. It seemed like only Byrne and Mr. Westbrook were privy to these little behind-the-scene details. No one let the boys or I in on any of the discussions regarding the master tape. To say my brothers and I were shocked and disappointed was an understatement. To add insult to injury, Source Records had already set up promotional tours for us at high schools and radio stations in the local area. The company wanted to recoup the money they invested in buying the master tape. They intended to use us to ensure a return on their investment. We were promised after a year we would be allowed to go into the studio and record our own songs. Our schedule was mapped out for us with zero input. We also learned the promotional tour would begin right away. Damn. The surprises kept coming. Being a small company, Source Records could not afford to put us on salary. They had rented the house. However, it was our responsibility to maintain it. Mr. Westbrooks reassured us after we learned the album, we could do small gigs to earn money. The rent had been paid 3 months in advance by the company. We had 2 months left. Afterward, we were on our own to fit the bills. The more we learned about the nuances of our deal with Source Records, the more our world came crashing down. We thought our contract would at least be like our brother's contract with Motown. We had hoped to be placed on a salary because we needed money. We had no idea what we had gotten ourselves into with this deal. Even worse, we had no idea how to get out of the deal. What do y'all think? I don't know if Debarge came out on Motown. I don't know what label they came out. But do you think maybe Motown bought them from Source Records? I think that might be what's coming up. We shall see. I soon became the focus of the meeting. I knew it was coming, and I dreaded it. Mr. Westbrooks informed me I would be receiving a contract to sign. Even though I was still on the fence, I came to the meeting leaning towards signing with the company. Upon learning the actual details of the record deal, I had second thoughts. Instead of asserting myself and making it known I had no intentions on signing the contract, I politely smiled and stated, "Thank you, sir. I look forward to receiving the contract." I thought to myself, this is crazy. Thank God I have not signed. Even though I was stalling, I had no idea how this would play out in my favor. My brothers had already signed, and I was a member of the group. Who could I go to for help? I had no contacts in the industry. I did not know the first thing about getting an artist out of a contract. The only person I figured could help was Bobby, except he was already feeling some kind of way about everything transpiring behind his back. He knew Byrne, though. Perhaps he could discuss with Byrne about getting the boys out of such a lousy contract. When I fully explained everything to Bobby, he went off. I told you guys to wait. I can't do anything right now. Motown is pressuring me every day to complete this album. And now I've got to think about you guys too? Bobby ranted. You need a lawyer. A record company is not going to release you. You guys already signed. There's nothing I can do. Our future in the music business looked bleak. The boys were bound to a 7-year contract that did not have their best interests at heart. All my hopes and dreams seemed to be going up in smoke. I could not help but question the situation. What difference did it make since we had already written our own songs and was just waiting to record them? We were not allowed to do anything with them because of the contract the boys signed. As far as I was concerned, moving to California was a waste of time. I was furious because our hands were tied, and although I had not signed and had no intention of ever signing, I did not want to leave my brothers high and dry. We needed a miracle. Although I did not feel close to God, I knew He was close to me. My Christian foundation had taught me such. He's married to the backslider, and He promised never to leave me or forsake me. Father God, I prayed, we're in trouble. Please help us. All right, that's the end of chapter 2. And pretty much that's all I can read because I'm still under the weather. However, the next time I come back, I will read more than one chapter. That's a promise. Mariah, hello. All right. And James. Yay. Allie. Okay. Yeah. Chapter 3 is called A Rude Awakening. And we shall see what's to come of all of this. It's a good book, isn't it? And trust me, I want to get through this book as just as much as y'all want to hear it. I do not read ahead because, I want to experience this book right along with you. If I read ahead, then I got to go back and already know what's going to be happening. That I just don't think that's a good idea. Let it be fresh and new to all of us together. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. But it's time for me to go and just kind of, take care of myself and try to get this junk out my system. All right, y'all. Peace.